Long before the term supervillain existed, the sorceress Circe was already doing what many of them would later spend decades perfecting, stripping heroes of control, forcing them to confront who they really are, and then basking in the fallout. And like many good fictional characters of a certain vintage, she has taken on many different forms over the years. While her methods may evolve and motivations are altered, the core idea never changes though. Circe is a test of the hero's ego. In Justice League Unlimited, that test isn't really aimed at Wonder Woman though. Arguably, it winds up being a challenge that Batman must face. Now, to understand how we got to that specific version of Circe, the one who turns the amazing Amazon into a pig and a vigilante into a crooner, we need to start much further back in the ancient Greek myths. Circe is a sorceress and the daughter of Helios, the sun god. She lives alone on the island of Aea, completely removed from society with very little interest in what's going on in the wider world. So when Odysseus and his crew arrive on her island and start acting like they own the place, well, you know something bad's gonna happen. Circe welcomed them with hospitality before transforming them into pigs. And the choice of animal is deliberate because Circe doesn't arbitrarily create monsters. She exposes fundamental truths about people, or at least the truth as far as she is concerned. The men came to her island uninvited, and they gorged themselves on her food and drink. She simply showed them who they were deep down inside. Odysseus survived her spell only because he was warned in advance and was protected by divine intervention. When he confronted Circe directly, she put her hands up, didn't contest anything, and restored his men to human form, and became their hosts, his lover, and an ally. She gave them vital knowledge about the trials ahead of them, and she neither pursued nor punished Odysseus for eventually leaving her. In later Roman retellings of her story, Circe is written as a more openly vengeful character, using transformation as punishment. And yes, the Romans like to take Greek myths, rework them, and then pass them off as the definitive version, a practice that should sound very familiar to comic book fans, I'm sure you'll agree. Regardless of the author, the mythological versions of Circe do not seek dominion, worship, or legacy. Instead, they test heroes, revealing what lies beneath their bravado, appetite, and self-image. With that established, let's flash forward to the comic book version of Circe, who is traditionally a Wonder Woman villain. Circe made her first appearance in Wonder Woman number 37, published in 1949, and it's fair to say that writer William Marston, operating under the pen name of Charles Moulton, took some creative liberties with her. I think that the best way to describe this Circe is a cross between the mythological figure and a more of its era pulp fantasy figure. She's a centuries-old enchantress sustained by an elixir called vitae, and specialises in the poetic punishment of people she's deemed unworthy. She is a fairly shallow two-dimensional villain, as you would expect from the era of comic book storytelling, and that's the crucial difference. The transformations were a form of punishment, and it's implied that very few of them were justified, as well as a source of entertainment. For her crimes, she had been banished to a distant island planet in space, whatever that means, by Wonder Woman's mother, Queen Hippolyta, and she was bitter. In her first story, she turned Wonder Woman into a deer, but was hastily defeated. And after that first confrontation in the 1940s, she vanished until the 1970s, where she essentially picked up where she left off for a few issues, and then vanished again until after Crisis on Infinite Earths. Regular viewers by now will know that Crisis on Infinite Earths is when much of DC's continuity was reset. While the more popular books kept quite a lot of the earlier continuity, less popular books like Wonder Woman were ripe for reinvention. And writer-artist George Perez took the opportunity to bring Wonder Woman's connection to Greek mythology to the forefront. And one of the ways he did this was by bringing Circe back and leaning into the idea of divine prophecy. The new version of Circe was redefined as a bitter island queen who traded her soul to the goddess Hecate in exchange for power. At the heart of this reinvention is Circe's rivalry with Wonder Woman, treating the pair as competing inheritances of myth. When Hecate transferred her divine authority to Circe, she warned that her power would one day be reclaimed upon the death of which and the birth of which. Circe interprets this as a prophecy of usurpation, and when she learns that Wonder Woman bears the name of the moon goddess Diana, she concludes that she is the prophesied nemesis that will be her undoing. This version of Circe is presented as fighting extinction, clinging to relevance in a world that increasingly favours heroes over gods, rather than a sorceress that turns people into beasts. And like all good Greek myths, by trying to avoid her fate by kidnapping Wonder Woman, Circe essentially guaranteed that her downfall would occur. She becomes one of Wonder Woman's most recognisable recurring villains, likely thanks to that purple hair and skin-tight outfit, although I don't think she has a definitive story outside of her first appearance. And that brings us to Justice League Unlimited. On the surface, the animated version discards most of what had come before, apart from the aesthetics. Yes, she still turns people into animals without provocation, but there are very few references to the gods or her lineage. Having said that, I think that at her core, she's still recognisably the same character, even if you have to squint a little. In the episode This Little Piggy, Circe is granted parole from the underworld on the condition that she doesn't bother her old rival Queen Hippolyta, and Circe agrees. However, she argues that they never said anything about harming Hippolyta's loved ones. So she lures Wonder Woman into a trap and turns her into a pig, vanishing into the night. Unlike the mythological version, this isn't a trial to help Diana become a better hero, or some deep personal revelation, it's just a petty insult. The majority of the episode is spent with Batman, who teams up with Zatanna and a gaggle of obscure heroes to try to break the spell. And for as much as Circe is the villain of the story, she's not really a villain in the traditional sense. She doesn't commit robberies, attack people without some form of provocation, aside from Diana I guess, or try to take over the world. This version of Circe is a performer, and all she wants to do is sing in front of a captivated audience like her famous cousins the Sirens. When she breaks into a museum at the episode's opening, it's an act, something to get Wonder Woman's attention. She seems to have no interest in material wealth, she wants adulation. And her powers are perfectly suited to the stage, bright spells and theatrical entrances, perfect for an amphitheatre filled with applause. This Circe basks in the attention of being a celebrity, which I suppose is the modern version of godhood, or at least it's close enough to it. Her goal is for people to see her and acknowledge her, which suggests to me a deep-rooted insecurity, although they don't really delve into that in any meaningful way. And Batman and Zatanna play on that. They interrupt her act, amusingly crushing her with a piano, Looney Tunes style. Circe's response is to turn her backup dancers into fearsome animals to occupy the heroes. Ultimately, Batman, who notes that he has read the Odyssey, simply asks Circe what it would take for her to undo her spell, and this is easily the highlight of the entire episode, a moment that will live on for decades to come. Circe says that there is a high price to pay. A hero must make a significant sacrifice, something that can never be undone. Batman must sing. Now, to be clear, this wasn't a punishment or something that was done to humiliate Batman. Like the Circe of myth, she wanted to reveal something about the mysterious Caped Crusader. The song Am I Blue is on the surface about romantic loss, and that fits for the DCAU version of Batman. Everything about him is a response to loss, the loss of his parents, the loss of any normal future, and the repeated loss of relationships. Batman famously doesn't process grief like a normal person, he organises it and wears it like armour. Batman's life is built around schemes and control that still can't prevent the one outcome he fears the most, ending up alone. Circe's price is that he reveals this personal truth through song. And yes, it's likely also a reference to the fact that he wears a blue cape. But that's the joke, doing cover for something far sadder. For once, Batman isn't hiding his melancholy behind shadows, fear, or theatrics. He's standing under stage lights, singing about loss and meaning every word of it. Which is why it's the perfect price, because it is honest. Despite being petty and mean-spirited, Circe is a woman of her word, and when Batman sings, she lifts the spell. Perfect timing, as the pig Wonder Woman had found her way into a slaughterhouse through a series of improbable mishaps, and she didn't bother Wonder Woman again. She had no reason to, because she wasn't a traditional costumed villain. She didn't join the Secret Society / Legion of Doom, whatever you want to call them, because they already had one purple-haired sorceress. No, she was a shallow, egotistical extrovert who felt that the slight against her had been paid for, and so she went on her way. And I think that this is one of the best things about JLU's Circe. On paper, she has little in common with the earlier versions, but really she takes bits and pieces from the mythological version as well as the comic book counterpart, and ultimately represents them all. Across the centuries, I think that one thing about Circe is certain: she reveals truth. In Homer's The Odyssey, she turns men into pigs to reveal a deeper truth about them. In the comics, she reshapes bodies and destinies to stave off obsolescence. And in Justice League Unlimited, she forces a hero who lives behind a mask to step into the spotlight and give the crowd something real. Diana always knows herself and is very open with the world, and it is Batman who needs to reveal a truth. Batman succeeds because he drops his emotional armor and shows us all how he really feels. And once Circe gets that true reveal, she keeps her word and exits the stage satisfied. So yes, Circe isn't the most important villain in Justice League Unlimited. She doesn't reshape the Justice League or transform the status quo. She's only in her debut episode for a few minutes, but what an episode. Like the myths that birthed her, she leaves behind something more enduring than continuity. It's a moment of truth, a crack in Batman's armor, and a reminder that even gods, heroes, and billionaires in capes are still vulnerable to being seen. Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Reber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel memberships are just $1.99 a month and give you early access to my essays, custom emojis, and your name featured on my members end screen, which has been rolling for a little while now. Huge thanks to everyone who's already part of this. You've helped to make these videos possible. If you want to see your name up here too, join the channel now. And while I have your attention, please consider checking out my other channel, Serum Lake Comics, where I talk about mostly DC comic books. Next time. When I return on Monday, it'll be time to talk about the winner of my latest Beware the Batman poll. Yes, we're on the home stretch now, shining the spotlight on the heroes of the series, and up first is Katana. And next Friday, it'll be the day before Valentine's Day, and what better way to mark this special occasion than by going to the neon-soaked streets of Neo-Gotham to talk about a comedic episode of Batman Beyond. It's time to talk about Terry's friend dates a robot. Hope to see you then.